to, you could raise your hand.
Your hand is raised?
Oh, shoot.
Recording in progress.
Good evening, everybody. We're about to start. It's just 7 o'clock. This is the City Council Land Use Committee meeting. I'm Andrea Kelly. I'm the Vice Chair. I'm going to be chairing tonight. Chair Lipoff won't be with us. With us tonight, we have in the chamber Councillor Lucas and Councillor Markowitz. On Zoom, we have Councillor Downs, Councillor Greenberg, and I think that's it for now. For staff, we have our clerk, Evan Cudmore. We also have with us, I see some planning department people. Also, Katie Wewell is one of those. We have Jonah Temple from the law department. Am I missing somebody else? Oh, and Councillor Bowman has joined also. We're going to go according to the agenda as it's set at first to do the first two consistency rulings, which do not need a vote, but we're going to discuss them in committee. And then the agenda.
Well, look how big your plant grow.
Call me Minnie Mouse. We have some cross audio from another committee meeting down the hall, but Evan's on top of it. The first consistency ruling we have is for 80 Highland Ave. The ISD commissioner is seeking the opinion of the Land Use Committee because the petitioner is seeking a ruling from the commissioner of ISD to alter the front setback for a detached accessory structure. I'm not sure, Evan, who is presenting for this, or what's the discussion to be? Oh, Katie, great. Katie Wewell, you're on.
Yes, thank you, Madam Vice Chair, Acting Chair. I will share my screen. I have some images. Like you said, this is a situation where the commissioner is seeking the opinion of the Land Use Committee. And I see that the applicant is also on this call who can answer questions. But based on what, we were told, it's, the special permit was to approve a detached garage, and that required relief to alter a non-conforming front setback from Lowell Avenue. This is sited on a corner lot of Lowell and Highland. However, when the foundation was poured, it was actually poured closer to that lot line on Lowell Avenue. It's not a huge discrepancy. It's less than a foot. It went from 16.9 feet approved to 16.6 feet as built. That's probably about 4 inches. And you can sort of see on the left, the former garage that was there was even closer to the front setback at 13.7 feet. So this actually still improves the conditions of the nonconformity. It's just a little closer than what was approved, and the commissioner wants to make sure that is still the intent of the special permit and is seeking the opinion of the committee on this.
Thank you, Katie. Do any of the committee members have questions or comments on this? Councillor Lucas?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Yeah, this is a nothing burger. We're talking about 3 to 4 inches, so I'll be ready to, I guess, give it the thumbs up. I don't think you said we don't vote on it, but I'm ready to give it the thumbs up.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments? Councillor Markowitz?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Yeah, I don't see any reason, I don't see anything wrong with this. This is just, it's consistent with whatever intent we had when you granted the permit in the first place. I don't see how this could in any way contra to that, so I'm good too.
For 4 inches. So Ms. Wewell, can we just get a sense of the committee without a vote on that? Or shall I just say if anyone has any other objections, or shall we assume that the intention and opinion of the committee is that this is de minimis and it's fine with us?
Yeah, I think I can take that back to the commissioner. I know also in the past, it's been more of a straw poll situation, and then that sort of informs the committee's response. But, I was around for when this was approved, and I do remember it being pretty well endorsed, so I can go take that back, or if you want to do a straw poll.
Councillor Downs.
I was giving it a thumbs up. As was I.
Oh, there we go. As do I. Councillor Greenberg.
Me too.
There we go. Ms. Wewell, take that back to the commissioner.
I will, thank you.
Unanimously think it's a fine idea without an official vote. The second.
Excuse me, can I speak for 1 second? Hello.
Sure.
Yeah, my name is Jim Gross. I'm with my wife Kiki. We are the owners of the property. I appreciate that sentiment. Do you know how quickly we can get the okay to go forward? I'm getting a little concerned that the weather's getting cold and we won't be able to pour the floor. So do you know how long it's before, Katie, I guess the question is directed to you, how long before we get a notice that we can go forward with continuing the building, the garage?
Yes, that is definitely from Ms. Wewell.
Yeah, we can talk offline, but all I have to do is let the commissioner know. He issues an actual ruling, so I think it depends on, what's going on there. But I will certainly bring this to him and let him know it's urgent.
Is the commissioner Mr. Anthony? Is that who that is?
Yeah, Anthony Ciccarello.
Oh, Ciccarello. Okay, thank you very much.
Should excuse me 1 second. This is Kiki Gross. How will we be notified that it's been approved and that we can proceed?
Ms. Wewell, I think just said you're going to talk offline tomorrow.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
All right, that one's all set. The next one is a consistency ruling for 1198 Chestnut Street, where again, the petitioner is seeking a consistency ruling from the Commissioner of Inspectional Services to allow a change to the approved elevations to allow a rear-facing third-story balcony. So the Commissioner is seeking the opinion of the Land Use Committee on this matter. Ms. Wewell, is this also you?
Yes, it is. So this is 1198 Chestnut Street. Their special permit was granted relief to exceed the FAR by constructing oversized dormers to the third story. Probably get a better sense of that here on the second slide. These drawings are a little kind of scrunched, but you can see these dormers is what was approved. And they are seeking to construct a balcony to the third level. So you can kind of get a better sense of that with the change in the rear elevation. It also sort of consists of, where this was previously angled, kind of flattens out with a balcony I've also shown an area plan of where that location would be of the balcony. So you can get a better sense of kind of the neighborhood, and if, if the committee thinks this isn't, would this have been approved previously if it were shown on the plans is sort of the main question here that the commissioner is seeking.
Exactly. Thank you for that clarification. So that's exactly what we should be thinking about. Like if this had come before us, which it didn't with the balcony, would we likely have been to approve it? Comments from commission members? Councillor Downs.
This is my ward, and you can sort of tell from the aerial. Chestnut Street is significantly downhill from Indiana Terrace behind it. So the third floor actually probably looks at the tree trunks, maybe also a little bit of the tree canopy. I think it looks lovely, and it makes for a more sociable space. And I think I probably would have approved it, and I'm happy to. And as far as, its intrusion into the surrounding neighborhood, that's also minimal. So I'm happy to give this a thumbs up from our end in Ward 5.
Thank you. I thought I saw a couple of other councillor Zoom hands up. Did you lower your hands, other councillors who had your hands up? Councillor Markowitz on the floor.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I agree. I don't see any harm in it either. So I agree with Councillor Downs on that. The only point I would make is that once again, we have something coming back that wasn't as built as we permitted it. So I always put that out there. We got to be careful when we do these things, and you don't really want to. I don't see any harm in this, but at the same time, it's still follow the plans. If you need a change, come in and ask for the change. So I'll leave it at that. But I go with the will of the committee. If everybody else thinks this is, no harm and fine, then, I'm certainly okay with it.
Councillor Bowman?
So can you just confirm, is the balcony already been built, or the deck they want to change the plans to include that?
My understanding is this was still proposed, but I'm not entirely confident in that.
That's what I thought. So I don't think it's they built it and now they're asking for
they're not asking for forgiveness. They're asking for permission. Okay, I'm glad you clarified that, because that may weight me more towards saying, okay, fine.
Yeah. I think they just wanted to know, hey, I tried to do this to my third floor. But my husband's like, no, we got to change the roof. It was a whole big deal. I wish I had thought of it. It wasn't until the construction actually happened that I thought it was a good idea. So I'm supportive. I think more outdoor spaces and giving people a way, especially, I know sometimes people are concerned that they feel like these overlook, but I think given the vegetation and the grade changes, I think that's fine. So I would be happy to support it.
Thank you, Councillor Bowman. I don't hear any objections from anybody, so I again think, Ms. Wewell, that you can tell the commissioner that the Land Use Committee does not have a problem with this proposal either.
Great, thank you.
Thank you. Next, we're going to move on to petition number 316-23, which is a request to further extend non-conforming FAR at 211 Dorset Road. We're going to be hearing first from planning on this, I believe.
Oh.
We normally have sort of switched this around to hear from planning first, and then you can fill in. Is that all right with you, Councillor?
That absolutely is fine, if that's the way Ms. Kemen would rather do with that.
I think Michael Gleba.
It's mine. I'm happy to let Mr. Schwartzer go first if he'd prefer to.
The shift we've slightly made is to hear from planning first, so why don't we do that?
Okay, sure. Let me share my screen. So this is petition 316-23, a special permit for 211 Dorset Road. The petitioner is proposing to construct a one-story addition to the right side and rear of the dwelling. the proposed additions will further exceed the maximum FAR, requiring special permit relief. In reviewing this request, the council should consider whether the site is an appropriate location for the proposed addition that requires relief to further extend the non-conforming floor area ratio. If the proposed addition that requires relief to further extend the non-conforming FAR will not adversely affect the neighborhood, if the addition will create a nuisance or serious hazard to vehicles or pedestrians, if access to the site over streets is appropriate for the types and number of vehicles involved, if the proposed increase in the non-conforming FAR from 0.44 to 0.46, where 0.36 is the maximum allowed by right, is consistent with and not in derogation of the size, scale, and design of other structures in the neighborhood, and if the proposed increase in non-conforming FAR is not substantially more detrimental than the existing non-conforming structure is to the neighborhood. So this is an aerial view of the site. It's in a predominantly residential area. The abutters to either side are single-family homes. The rear abutter is the MBTA tracks, and the Woodland station is close by. This site and surrounding parcels are zoned SR2 with public use and SR1 behind the house and over the line where the tracks are. This is the existing site plan. The property consists of a 12,070 square foot lot with a single family dwelling and attached garage, which was constructed in 1935. It has several existing nonconformities. It has a frontage of 65 feet where 80 feet is required. The front setback is 23 feet where 25 feet is required. It has a side setback at 5.9 feet where 7.5 feet is required. It's 3.5 stories tall, where 2.5 stories is allowed by right. And the existing floor area ratio is 0.44, where up to 0.36 is allowed by right. So those are all existing nonconformities of the site. And it has vehicular access provided by a curb cut leading to a paved driveway and an attached garage, which is on the left side of the building. This is the proposed site plan. The petitioner is proposing to construct an addition at the rear of the dwelling in the space where there is currently a deck in place and construct a new addition off of that rear addition. So the addition will add 239 square feet of floor area, resulting in a structure that is 5,562 square feet, where 5,323 square feet exists today. That addition will further increase the nonconforming FAR from 0.44 to 0.46. So that is the part of this project that needs relief. No changes are proposed to the existing front or side setbacks. The only setback impacted is the rear setback. The lot coverage will increase from 16.6% to 18.6%, where a maximum of 30% is allowed by right. And open space will decrease from 76% to 74%, where a minimum of 50% is required. This is the front elevation from Dorset with the existing on the left and proposed on the right. For the most part, the addition won't have a big impact on this elevation. There's just a little bit there on the left where you can see the new deck at the left of the proposed. This is the left elevation or west. The new addition will be in the footprint where the deck currently is, which is to the left of this gable there. And the new deck and stairs will extend out from there. This is the right elevation. No change to this setback. Some of the deck will be visible at the side of the building, but not the rest of the addition. And this is the existing and proposed rear elevation. The bulk of where the addition will be visible is here at the rear, with the addition in the footprint of where the deck is now, and the new deck extending out and back towards the train tracks at the rear. So the rear setback will decrease from 71.8 feet to 67.5 feet, where a minimum of 15 feet is required. So no relief needed for that rear setback. This will increase the nonconforming FAR to make this one of the bigger residences in this part of the neighborhood. However, the addition proposed is modest in size, and it will be located mostly within the existing footprint of the building and at the back. And the rear abutter is the train tracks. So all that considered, we are generally unconcerned with the proposed extension of FAR. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Mr. Schwartzer, what would you like to add to that? As you can see, why we've switched this is it puts much less of a burden on you to do a full presentation.
No, I do appreciate that, Madam Chairman. I'll just introduce myself. There are a couple things I'll just highlight briefly, but I think Ms. Kemet covered the vast majority of the issues. So just good evening, Madam Chairman, members of the Land Use Committee. For the record, my name is Franklin Schwartzer. I'm an attorney at the law firm of Schlesinger and Bookbinder, offices 1200 Walnut Street in Newton Highlands. And I'm here this evening on behalf of the petitioners Karen Ledeen and Scott Prushik, and our architect Florin Luca, all of whom are with me. I'm also joined by several neighbors who have come out to express their support for the project. As Ms. Kemet has already gone through the site, all I want to do with the slides here briefly is just show some of the plans that she already showed. I've just highlighted in blue exactly where the proposed addition is. So here's the existing condition. Highlighted in blue is the open air deck that exists at the property. All we're asking to do is to enclose that rear area deck to just increase the existing space by 239 square feet. Because the lot size, that 239 square feet, raises the FAR from 0.44 to 0.46. Highlighted in green on this slide is also a proposed deck. That could be done by right. That does not impact FAR. And that's where the change in the setback comes. So these next few slides showing the elevations show the extent of the changes. I've highlighted those again in blue. Here's the front elevation. You see all you really see would be the steps from the new deck. Again, that would be by right. Here's from the existing side east elevation. Again, highlighted in blue is that deck. And then you have from the rear elevation showing what the extent of the addition would be, single story, 239 square feet, and then from the east side. And yeah, the zoning relief we're looking for is the increase in FAR. Planning department had really no concerns with the proposal, and we've received nothing but positive feedback from our neighbors. That concludes our presentation. Happy to answer any questions you might have.
Thank you, Mr. Schwartzer. This would be a good time for us to hear from the neighbors or members of the public who have comments, who would like to come. If you're in the chamber, you can come to the microphone and identify yourself, just your name and address and what you have to say about this project.
My name is Andrew Myers at 221. We're one house down, and we support the project. It's in the back. It'll only enhance, I think, the neighborhood, and we've been neighbors for 8 years, and we think it will only enhance the neighborhood, so we're fully supportive of the project.
Thank you, Mr. Byers. Anybody else from the audience?
My name is Richard Weiss. I'm the butter at 215, which is the house just to the left of this one. We have no problems with the addition at all and support the project.
Thank you for coming out.
Sandra Daydall, 205 Dorset, next door neighbors. We are enthusiastic about this renovation, and we hope you support it. It does a wonderful job of keeping the homes looking all uniform, and they've done such a wonderful job of keeping the additions in the back, so we support it.
Thank you.
I think that's everyone, Madam Chairman.
Thank you. That's nice to see such a positive group of neighbors make an effort to come out on a dark night to speak on behalf of a proposal. I don't see anyone else, so let's take it into the committee. Councilor Downs.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'm ready to move to close the public hearing and move approval when you're ready.
I don't see any other hands up or any other comments, so I'm happy to accept. Oh, Councilor Markowitz? Sorry, hold on.
No, I wasn't going to add anything negative. This is like de minimis. The open space is the same. The footprint's the same. It looks like a great project. So, yeah.
Great. Thank you. So the motion has been moved to close the public hearing. All in favor, please say aye. Aye.
Aye.
And the motion has been made to approve. Can we see a council order, please?
So for findings, we have one, the proposed increase in the non-conforming floor area ratio from 0.44 to 0.46, where 0.36 is the maximum allowed by right, is consistent with and not in derogation of the size, scale, or design of other structures in the neighborhood and will not be substantially more detrimental than the existing non-conforming structure is to the neighborhood because the addition meets all setback requirements and is not higher than the existing structure. 2, the site is an appropriate location for the proposed addition because the addition will be unobtrusive and minimally visible from the street. 3, the addition will not adversely affect the neighborhood because it is subordinate to the principal roofline of the dwelling. 4, there will be no nuisance or serious hazard to vehicles or pedestrians because the curb cut and driveway will be maintained in their current state. And 5, access to the site over streets is appropriate for the types and number of vehicles involved. And for conditions, we have the standard plan referencing, building permit conditions, and standard occupancy conditions.
Thank you. I think we can take a vote on this. Mr. Cudmore, call the roll.
Councillor Bowman?
Aye.
Councillor Downs?
Aye.
Councillor Greenberg?
Aye.
Councillor Kelly?
Aye.
Councillor Laredo? Councillor Lipoff? Councillor Lucas?
Aye.
Councillor Markowitz?
Aye.
Motion passes.
Thank you all.
Forward. Thank you all for coming. I'm going to go a little bit off agenda now. We're going to not do 97 Woburn Hill Road right now. We're going to do 373 Lexington Street, which is number 263-23. Do we have Mr. Morris on? I believe we will still we're going to hear from Mr. Morris first on this because I think we're going to be disposing of it quickly tonight. Mr. Morris.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'm requesting a continuance on this matter. This is actually the second continuance that we've requested. The first was as a result of the unavailability of a particular abutter who had expressed willingness to attend the meeting and was unable to do so due to travel. Since that time, we have been in contact with Mr. Robertson's attorney, Michael Purse, who is known to many of you, and that contact has culminated in a lengthy meeting at the site with Mr. Purse and I last Wednesday, at which we parted with the commitment for further dialogue. I was surprised to see a letter sent to the committee, which I actually received, was able to get a copy of only by Sunday evening. I think in light of that, we would like the opportunity to continue working with Mr. Robinson and his attorney to come up with an acceptable resolution to the concerns that he has expressed. And for that reason, we are requesting a continuance.
Thank you, Mr. Morris. Councillor Markowitz.
Thank you. So this is my ward. I'm pretty familiar with the situation. I think most of the committee has the background here. I think it makes sense for Mr. Morris, Mr. Pierce, and the neighbors to continue to work this and come back. As we discussed, I think when you come back in, have a plan, an agreement that everybody who's a party to this is in favor of, and then we can, simply dispose of it. But it sounds like you're tracking that way, but there's clearly a few more things that need to be done. So I don't know if I move it or whatever, but I'm certainly in support of allowing the continuance.
Mr. Clerk, does he move to approve the request for continuance? Councilor Markowitz, you could make a motion to hold.
Make a motion to hold. Okay, Councilor Gentile, I think, has his hands up.
Councilor Gentile.
Thank you. So to try and save some time at the next meeting, there's a couple of things that I'm hoping can be clarified. I pulled up I went to the link and I guess now there's some kind of a questionnaire that kind of summarizes these permits. And on the questionnaire, it says, are you creating any new residential units? The answer is no. I guess I don't understand how that's no when there's a totally separate residential unit in the back. And again, I'm not looking for answers now because you guys have, I know you're moving along. It says, are you creating gross floor area? Right now, the existing two-family is being converted into a single family, and the unit in the back, that to me is all new floor area, so I don't understand why that's no. And then it says, are there any prior special permits or variances on the subject property? I believe there's actually two. The first one in 2007, apparently the plans that were submitted were not followed. So here we have again another special permit where the plans, were not built as they were submitted. And then there was another special permit in 2011. So hopefully we can get some clarification there. And I'm wondering, because it would make a difference to me, if the violation that occurred back in 2000, after the 2007 special permit, if that was the same owner, or has this owner, who's petitioning now, inherited the situation. And then when you read the planning department's report, it talks about a number of enforcement issues related to a firewall in the garage that was constructed back in 2010. So hopefully somebody can talk a little bit more about that. So again, I think maybe it's best if those questions could be noted, and there might be another one or two, but I don't want to tie up the committee. Everybody had a long night last night, but if people could be prepared to address the issues I raised, I'd appreciate it.
Thank you, Councillor Gentile. Those are all things that will be discussed and looked into between now and the next time, but it's good that you have put them on the record, and I'm sure that they will be addressed next time. Are there any other comments from councillors or committee members? We have a motion on the floor.
I'll make a motion to hold, but I just want to make sure I respond to Councilor Gentile. That all of those items are in the work. Those are the things that have to be answered and more.
Yes.
But there's a long, as you know now, there's a long history with this
And
thing.
tonight's not the night for us to be talking about previous special permits or violations.
Right,
Those will
yeah.
all be covered between now and the next
Right,
meeting.
and that's why I made the comment I did about when you come back in, let's have all this stuff lined up so we can just go through it. But in the meantime, I will move hold.
And one last thing, and then I'll lower my hand. If to the petitioner's attorney, Attorney Morris, I tell him this all the time, but I'll say it again. If there are any other meetings at the site like he had with Attorney Pierce, I certainly would welcome an invite so I can be further educated. All right?
So noted.
Thanks.
All right, thanks. We're going to move to take a vote on the hold. Yeah, no, let's call the roll call.
Councillor Bowman,
Aye.
Councillor Downs,
Aye.
Councillor Greenberg,
Aye.
Councillor Kelly,
Aye.
Councillor Laredo, Councillor Lipoff, Councillor Lucas,
Aye.
Councillor Markowitz.
Aye.
Motion passes.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you, Madam Chair. and
Again,
members.
thank you, Mr. Morris. We'll see you next time, whenever that time is. You'll be notified. We're going, for those of you in the audience, we're going a little bit out of order, but in order for where we just were, and we're going to do petition 318-23, which is the Jewett Place, 0 Jewett Place, and 15 to 17 Jewett Place next. First, we can also hear from planning, from Kat, about this.
Yes, let me just share my screen. Okay, so this is petition 31823, a special permit for 1517 Jewett Place. The petitioner proposes to demolish the existing two-family dwelling on the lot and construct 3 single-family attached dwellings. Relief is required for the single-family attached use. Relief is also required for reduced lot area, to allow a reduced rear setback, to allow a retaining wall of 4 feet or higher within a setback, and to allow parking within 20 feet of a boundary line and a driveway within 10 feet of the side lot line. In reviewing this request, the council should consider whether the site is an appropriate location for the 3 single-family attached dwellings. If the proposed 3 single-family attached dwellings will not adversely affect the neighborhood, if the project will not create a nuisance or serious hazard to vehicles or pedestrians, if access to the site over streets is appropriate for the types and number of vehicles involved, if literal compliance with the parking requirements is impracticable due to the nature of the use or the location, size, width, depth, shape, or grade of the lot, and if the specific site is an appropriate location for a retaining wall of 4 feet in height within the side setback. The site is located on the north side of the city near the Watertown border. The closest abutters to the site are all residential, and direct abutters include 2-family and a 4-unit multifamily building. Most of the nearby structures are residential. This site and the surrounding parcels are all zoned multi-residence too, and there are stops for several bus lines within half a mile. The property consists of a 13,300 square foot lot, which was created by consolidating 3 parcels on Jewett Place, which is a private way with a dead end, and this is one of the parcels at the end. On the site now is a 2.5-story 2-family dwelling constructed circa 1880. It has a non-conforming side setback on the east side of 11.6 feet, where a minimum of 25 feet is required, and a non-conforming rear setback of 12.8 feet, where 25 feet is required. The site slopes up from the street to the back of the property, and much of the site is currently vegetated on the right side. There is a retaining wall along the eastern property line and some fencing along the property line at various points as well. Vehicular access is provided via a paved driveway at the end of Jewett Place, which leads to a detached garage in front of the dwelling here. This is the proposed site plan. The petitioner proposes to demolish the existing structure and construct 3 single-family attached units. Relief is required for the single-family attached use, and relief is needed for the lot size, which is proposed at 13,300 square feet, where a minimum of 15,000 square feet is required for the use. The lot area per unit is proposed at 4,433 square feet, where a minimum of 4,000 square feet is required, so it doesn't require relief for that. The lot coverage is proposed at 24%, where up to 25% is allowed by right. Open space is proposed at 53.4%, where a minimum of 50% is required. There is an existing retaining wall along the eastern property line that will be maintained, and new retaining walls are proposed along the south and western lot lines up here, which will connect at the rear corner of the property. The wall along the western lot line reaches a maximum height of 4 feet within the setback, so that does need relief. 3 curb cuts are proposed to provide vehicular access. Each unit will have a dedicated garage accessed via individual paved driveways. The left and right-hand units will each have individual 1-bay garages. The middle unit will have a 2-bay garage. 1 surface stall measuring 9 by 19 feet is proposed at the very end of Jewett Place on the east side of the property in front of the left-hand unit. Because it is located within 20 feet of the northern and eastern lot lines, and the driveway runs along the northern property line, special permit relief is required. Altogether, the increase of impervious areas is over 1,000 square feet for the project, and it will disturb some land that's currently in a natural vegetated state. Staff recommend the petitioner consider taking measures to reduce the large amount of new impervious area proposed. This is the proposed front elevation. The building will be 2.5 stories and 35.5 feet in height, where up to 36 feet and 2.5 stories is allowed by right. The front setback is proposed at 25.5 feet, where 25 feet is required, and 27.5 feet exists today. Each unit will have these individual garages facing out on Jewett Place, and these are at the basement level, which is at street level due to the grading of the site. Based on the architectural plans provided, the left and right unit will have front-facing doors out on the street, and the middle unit appears to have a side-facing main entrance. We've suggested the petitioner consider orienting the front door for the middle unit to face the street to better match the residential character of the neighborhood. Each unit does have a small porch and landscaped area on the front facade, and there are lawn and patio areas proposed at the rear of the building. The plans indicate that landscaping will be installed along the sides of the eastern and western property lines and near each of the front entrances, and some fencing along the lawn and patio area. We've requested the petitioner provide a more detailed landscape plan or information about the landscaping proposed, including details about any tree removal on the site to better understand how this will present on Jewett Place and to neighbors. This is the left elevation. The setback on this side is currently non-conforming at 11.6 feet, where 25 feet is required. This project will increase the setback to 25.4 feet. So that will make this setback conforming where it's currently non-conforming. This is the right elevation. So this is the first elevation someone coming down Jewett Place would see. The setback will be reduced from 99.7 feet to 25.6 feet, where 25 feet is required. So a significant reduction, but still by right. There will be a retaining wall that needs relief along this side within the setback. And this is the rear elevation. The rear setback is currently non-conforming at 12.8 feet. It will be increased in this plan to 14.8 feet, but does still require relief because it doesn't meet the minimum of 25 feet that's required. Overall, planning supports the proposed use. We believe this is an appropriate place to have 3 units where there are currently 2. There's a pretty good mix of single, 2, and multifamily residential uses in this area. We recommend reworking the front entrance for that middle unit and considering reducing the amount of paving proposed, and would like to see a landscape plan as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Kemet. Does the petitioner have things that you'd like to add to that?
Good evening. Thank you for having me this evening. I'm here with my team, which consists of Terry Morris, his zoning attorney, Trevor and Mariano from MGD Plus as architects, and Laura from Ryan Associates as landscape architect and design team. I will pass it. Well, first I'll say that we have done work already in this neighborhood, so might be some neighbors on this call that can contest to the work we've done already on Gardner Street. That was a 4-unit project. We did have a neighborhood meeting, walk through the project, and if any neighbors here, they can kind of speak up about that at some point in the previous experience that they've had with our group. As I mentioned, it's a 3-unit project, and at this point, I'll pass it over to Terry Morris to discuss the zoning, and then on to Mariana and Trevor to discuss the architect. Sure.
Mr. Morris? Mr. Morris, you're muted. Does he have screen sharing?
I'm sorry.
Okay.
If we could have permission to share the screen, Madam Chair.
So requested.
Thank you.
I think we're seeing it.
All right, Trevor, you controlling the screen?
Yes, yeah, I am.
All right. Can we start with the overhead aerial view? Actually, I have the same set. As Ms. Kemet pointed out, this property is located in a densely populated neighborhood surrounded entirely by other residential structures. I think it's useful to look at the aerial photo because this particular property is at the end of a private way that was carved out of a 1870 subdivision. It is, except for the for that private way, it would be landlocked. Trevor, we go next slide. I think it's useful to look at the way itself. This is looking east from Jewett Street down the way, and then the second photo is looking west from the prop where the house sits out to Jewett Street. I want to show that this is particularly relevant because of the issue of how much lot coverage there is now, how much asphalt there is. Much of this site is covered either by building or by asphalt. If we go to the next photo. As you can see, you get a better idea. At the end of Jewett Place was a cinder block garage that was constructed by the longtime owners of this property. In the background, you see the actual building itself, which is a late 19th century farmhouse. You have another view here looking east. Within the foreground is the open part of the property that is proposed to be developed. Next photo. Again, now you got a better idea as to the current situation where the proximity of the garage to the front entry of the house. And then again, you get another view of the property from the back and the rear L of the property looking north, east. Trevor, next slide. More photos just to show the heavy undergrowth around the property. I think it's also useful in case some members did not get a chance to do a site visit. Next screen. Here's the existing conditions plan. You can see that Jewett Place, as it was originally laid out, is 20 feet wide and extends the entire length it extends to its entire length. Was originally done, as I say, it was carved out of a subdivision plan that created 3 lots off of Jewett Street itself, with this house being located at the furthest of the 3 from the street. Next. This is an A&R plan, and I think it's important to present this to the committee because in John Daglian's engineering memo, he mentions the need for an A&R plan. Once having gotten that report, I sent John a copy of the plan, which had been recorded several months ago. This lot, the subject lot, 13,300 square feet, is the result of a consolidation of two of the 3 lots that were created from the subdivision, along with that portion of Jewett Place itself, which was immediately frontage on the last of the 3 lots. Jewett Place, as I said, is a private way. Next slide, please. And here we have the architectural site plan. I wanted to call your attention to the fact that, as Ms. Kemet pointed out, we are seeking relief from the 25-foot setback requirement that is applied to all town attached dwellings on all 4 sides. As has been discussed in the past, there is a provision in the ordinance to waive that, and for good reason, because that kind of a setback was actually instituted some time ago when the building module for attached dwellings was something quite different. We are asking for relief only on the rear setback, and that is because we, as you can see from the architectural site plan, we have staggered the building to avoid the creation of a single plane facade across the front. We've also, you'll note that the property is, it rises going from north to south. It rises in the back, it's got some severe topographical angles on either side of the lot, as you can see by the confluence of the nearness of the topographical lines. one of the things that we pointed out, Jewett Place, as I can say for the third time, is a private way, but it really, in this particular case, it functions as a driveway. For the longest time, it functioned as a driveway because it was only there to service the single building, the single residential building at the end of it. We actually believe that the introduction of 3 new homes here it has a benefit to the neighborhood because these 3 buildings will be sprinklered. And given the fact that they are in a quasi landlocked situation at the back of a private way, having these 3 units fully sprinkled is an additional safety concern should there be any type of fire occasion. The existing house, of course, as you saw, having been built around 1880, was entirely wood frame and constituted somewhat of a fire hazard in its present condition. Next slide, please. Here we have the start of the floor plans. I think I will end my remarks and pass it off to Mariana DeGatti, our project architect, with the simple observation that the actual living space in each of these units ranges from 2,350 square feet to 2,900 square feet as measured in floor area ratio. That, of course, does not account for the garage space. So, Mariana, without further ado, it's all yours.
Thank you very much, Terry. Mariana DeGatti from MGD Plus, as Terry Morris and our client David just mentioned, we are the architectural team involved in the design for this project. There's a little to add to this thorough description of the project, but one of the elements that I would like to remark is the fact that by staggering these houses, we managed to break the massing of the building, which allows for reading specifically each individual house. And if we can move and pass these floor plans, which are the lower level, the first floor plan, Trevor, if you can show us, it shows that we are accommodating our typical floor plan open space concept arrangement for this floor. We usually try to incorporate as well the guest room or office to just add more to potential accessibility for these units. And then when you go to the upper floors, we will have 3 bedrooms on each of these units, plus accommodation for just additional space in the attic. The additional material that you will see now in this presentation, which was not part from the planning presentation, there are a few renderings that if we can go now to them, they probably will add a little more to the architectural language that we have chosen for this particular project. So essentially, we try to stay within the transitional, more transitional between traditional architectural language that we consider that blends very well with the neighborhood. In these renderings, you will see that we incorporated elements like bay windows, porches, all these usual items that we consider are providing more residential character and look to the building. As is being said so far, the benefit we use in our benefit the existing topography. So all the garages will be accommodated in the lower level, which is actually the street level, but the units will also have access from the first floor to a rear open space, which is going to be on the same level. This is something that we, in our opinion, it will improve the quality for the occupants to enjoy for more open space. And it's actually, as I was started saying, by setting back the building in that staggered form, it will create also privacy, more privacy to those rear yards. One of the renderings, I think you just passed probably, Trevor, before this one, we were showing some materials board, and I think this is something that the commission typically would like to know, what kind of materials we are considering for this project. The regular fiber cement planks. This is what we would like to use for exterior siding, architectural shingles in the roofs. Our windows that we are proposing will have the 2/2 look, which is more in line with this type of architectural language. And we also propose a selection or palette of colors that we will evaluate along the process, which is more, I would say, more adequate for this location. In the meantime, we are showing our presentation, as I said, with the illustration that we have created with this photorealistic rendering. We are trying to provide more information about the architectural look and language that we are proposing for this project. But I will be open to answer any questions you may have regarding this project. One more thing, probably, I don't know if Laura, you would like to add some details or comments regarding the landscape plan?
Sure, I certainly can. Trevor, could you skip to that slide? I think it was a couple ahead of time. Great. So here's the landscape plan. It's pretty straightforward. We're mostly using plants to try to create individual garden spaces for each of the units. So we're using a combination of shrubs and evergreens and trees to create screening between the various units. We're using a predominant palette of native species. Well, it's not entirely native, but for now we're showing mostly native species. And then we're also using planting to help mitigate some of the slopes on the sides. We have a slope that's going to an existing retaining wall on the eastern side, and then another slope that's going to a new retaining wall on the western side. So this is the landscape plan. We are still working with the tree warden on trying to assess the existing trees that are being removed, but we will certainly be in compliance with all of those regulations and work closely with Mark to make sure that we come to some conclusion that's beneficial for everyone.
Mariana, I'm not sure whether you addressed the issue of the front door and the middle unit. We've already taken steps, as Ms. Kemet had pointed out in her memorandum, to basically the scene you see right now, that recessed window in the middle unit is going to be changed to a door similar to the other doors that on either side. So we've addressed that issue already.
Yes, that's right, Terry. I think essentially our design allows for this modification, and we can definitely easily accommodate the comments from the board.
I believe that completes our presentation, Madam Chair. We're available for any questions.
Thank you to all the team. Let's see first if we have any questions or comments from members of the public. I don't see any hands raised. Oh,
There's at least one.
Marisa Fusco.
Marisa Fusco.
Hi, I'm Marissa Fusco. I'm a trustee of 2125 Gardner Street. And we just wanted to let the committee know that we support the project. These folks worked on a project that abuts us to the north side of our property, and they were incredibly professional, accommodating, and just overall, great to work with. So we like the way it looks and support the project.
Thank you so much for that input. Anybody else from the public want to speak? Otherwise, we'll take it into the committee. And I see Councilor Greenberg's hand.
Oh, thank you, Madam Vice Chair. So thank you for the presentation, Mariana. I like how you staggered the 3 buildings. I think that's much better. And thank you for addressing the front door in the middle unit. I think that would be a big improvement. I'm wondering if planning is satisfied with the landscaping plan that's being presented now.
This is the first time I'm seeing it, so I haven't really had a lot of time to absorb it.
Okay.
To be honest.
Okay. So will you let us know if there's any issues? Okay. In the landscaping plan, it looks like there's 4 patios. Is that correct?
That is correct. Mm-hmm. There's one for each unit, and then one smaller sort of gravel patio for the unit all the way to the right that's a little bit lower down. So they just have a couple of seating areas because their allocated yard space is larger.
Okay. And then the other concern planning had with the amount of pervious paving, is there any way that we could have some impervious pavers being used instead of the blacktop?
I think that's a question we would need to speak with our civil engineer about. Unless David or Terry, you have other information that I don't have.
Having worked with David Oliveri and his partner on a number of projects now, David's actually in the audience, so he could speak for himself, but I know he's been always open to improving situations like that, with especially around reducing the amount of asphalt and instead using pervious materials.
Okay, can we get that commitment from David?
Yeah, I know you want to see that.
I would have to understand a little bit more of what I'm committing to before I would be willing to do that. I mean, if you're asking for us to put all pavers throughout the driveways, I think that's challenging to, I wouldn't say maintain, but if that's going to get plowed, they get beat up pretty quickly. So I would be open to the suggestion, which I believe we could work with the planning department to address that, but to commit, to what extent, I'm not sure what you're asking.
So I'm not sure exactly what planning had in mind either. Perhaps you could work with them, like you said, and decide on an amount of impervious pavers, of pervious pavers that you could use for the project.
I think that's
to reduce the amount of
course.
hard top.
We would be open to working with the planning department to address that.
Okay, thank you. You know, the petitioner has said, they did a project on Gardner Street that was pretty controversial in the beginning, but they won over the neighbors, and it is a beautiful project. The ones they did, the 2 homes on Gardner Street, and the neighbors are happy with it, as we heard from the Fuscos. So I'm confident that Mr. Oliveri will do a good job here also. And I'm happy that the lot coverage is less than 25% and that the open space is over 53%. So I am in favor of this project, and I will close the public hearing and move approval when ready.
Thank you. We still have some more councillor comments, but we'll keep those motions in mind. Thank you, Councillor Greenberg. Councillor Downs.
Hi, and thank you, Madam Chair. I am curious about the orientation of the driveways. So are they north facing, or? Because I know you had that out there, but it was difficult to tell which way was north.
Jewett Place itself runs east-west, and the driveways intersecting that at a right angle would be north-south.
And the buildings would be
the front doors of the buildings face north.
Buildings are north of the driveways. So that would suggest that you might well want to do something more impervious with the driveways, just because?
The driveway is north, driveway is north of the buildings.
The driveway's north of the buildings.
Right.
Okay, that is a different situation than if it's south of the buildings. Thank you. We have neighbors who have driveways that are mostly in the shade, that they have created with open blocks through which grows grass, and it works great because they don't, they only use the driveways to park their cars. So for that section, perhaps you can look at something along that line. We do have issues in Newton, as you know, from the summer with flooding. So the more absorbent our landscape can become, the better it is for all of us, perhaps not directly for this project, but for projects downstream. So I will back planning on the pervious pavement comment, and Councilor Greenberg as well. I like this project. The other one, and I like that you're looking at native plants for the landscaping. That also fits with our climate goals to add back some biodiversity. I was intrigued by the first floor office guest room units and the accessibility idea, which I think is good. But if I look at the front elevation, I'm not sure how someone with a mobility issue would access that front, that first floor. Can you help me out here, or is there a simple place where an elevator or lift could go that would get someone from the street level to the first level?
So I can make a comment regarding that, because yes, I mean, I think accessibility is kind of a sensitive word. What I was trying to say is that we try to accommodate within the main floor as much as possible, and a room or a space that can be used temporarily as a bedroom or something, so the actual resident doesn't need to do the stairs all the time to get to the bedrooms. For this project, it's clear that with all the first floors elevated from the street level, definitely is not accessibility the right, I would say, term to use about that. But I was trying just to say that adding that space within the main living area, or the main living level, it was just helping to have all the living spaces on the same level. So I correct myself because I know that accessibility can be far more sensitive than that as a word.
Great, thank you. I really appreciate your answers. I'm all set, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Downs. Councillor Markowitz.
Thank you. I just had a question. The project looks fine to me, but could you just confirm to me where the driveway is? I thought I heard somebody say 3 curb cuts before, and that kind of, maybe they misspoke, or they meant just 3 entrances to the garages. But since looking at the map on the road, I don't see a clear picture of that. So could somebody just show me where the curb, how they get from the street back there? Is it just following along Jewett Place, or?
Yes, can we put that site plan back up?
Councilor Markowitz, I think if you look at this architectural site plan, and as I said before, this Jewett Place has functioned as a driveway rather than a roadway. And the idea of curb cuts is kind of obsolete. When you look at this plan, you'll see basically they're essentially extensions of that driveway.
Yeah, okay. I think I got confused, Terry, because of the wall. The picture, the way, I look down the street, but I'm just looking at the wall and as it's on the architectural plan, and the wall that's in the photograph in the rendering, and I'm trying to figure out if I'm missing something. I don't think I am, but I'm just confirming that they're actually, those curb cuts are really just turns off Jewett Place, and the wall is on the extreme. There you go. Thank you. So the thing that we can't see that's would be in the foreground is Jewett Place, the road, right?
Right.
Okay.
Correct.
Okay, that's all I needed. Thanks.
Thank you. Thank you, Councilor Markowitz.
You know how crazy we are about curb cuts here, right? It's like people have posters with black lights on them in their rooms with curb cut information.
Thank you, Councilor Markowitz. Councilor Lucas.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Just a quick follow-up on what Councilor Markowitz said. I don't think this was addressed. Is there a sidewalk outside this development?
There is not.
Okay, that's what I thought. And this is essentially the last house on a dead-end street, right?
Exactly.
Okay. And there's no access from Jewett Place to the abutting streets? Like there's no pathway or...
There is not.
Okay, yeah, that's what I thought. Okay. You're asking for zoning relief on the, was it the rear or side setback? I guess it's the rear, looking at what's in front of us right now, 14.5 feet or so. Just, do you know, Mr. Morris, how close the abutting home is back there?
It's far removed. I think the Fuscos can comment on that because they are living in that house.
I think actually where the relief is being requested at the 14 feet is actually a drop off in back of the property. So, and I think the middle unit, if I'm not mistaken, is actually further back, which would be abutting our property. And so that looks like to be further away. So behind the relief of 14 feet is a drop off, and there's actually nothing behind there. The house is much further on the street, many, many feet away.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Melissa.
All right, I have another question. You're not asking for any zoning relief on parking. It's all going to be conforming. You have 3 units, so there should be 6 parking stalls on site. But I saw a 2-car garage, a 1-car garage, and I think another 1-car garage. Are the 2 other cars parking on the driveway?
If they bring up the site plan, you'll be able to see that better. Architectural site plan. You'll see that there's an extension of Jewett Place that is 1 parking space, a second parking space for the first unit, and then the depth of the driveway is second space for the third unit.
Okay, so if I'm looking at it, the unit on the left is unit number 1. You have a 1-car garage, and then you have that 1 space down there.
That's correct.
You have a 2-car garage in unit 2. That's straightforward.
Right.
And then on the right, you have a garage and then tandem parking in front.
Correct.
Okay. All right. Good. Just wanted to make sure. And thank you for whoever drew the red rectangles. Very helpful. Bring this person back. Thank you, Mr. Morris.
Most welcome.
Thank you, Councilor Lucas. Councilor Laredo.
I'm going to be very brief. This project looks fine to me, but because I missed a portion of the presentation, I'm going to abstain this evening. Thank you.
Thank you and welcome. I meant to note that you had joined us. I just have a couple of quick questions going last, nothing that important, and maybe it was touched on and I was trying to be organized and didn't hear it. Did you have to go before Newton Historic for a demolition permit for this?
We did, and it's been approved.
Great. I understand that some things are still in the works in terms of materials and colors and trees and landscape plan and pervious surface, but it looked in some of the renderings that the walls were like what somebody might call cinder block, I might call concrete block, but in another rendering it kind of looks like stone walls. So what do you think that material really is going to be?
I will refer that to Laura.
You're talking about the site retaining walls as opposed to the retaining walls at the stairs?
Both, particularly the walls around the stairs, around the driveway / walls to the garages. They're 2 different looks and 2 different renderings that you presented. And again, one looked like very concrete blocky things, another looked like probably also concrete blocks, but more like stone walls. And I just wondered which way you're thinking of going on the material of that.
I think that's something we haven't entirely decided yet. Certainly there are lots of really nice things you can do with concrete blocks that are more better than cinder blocks now. And that may be the avenue we end up pursuing. Mariana, did you have any other?
Yeah, and I want to clarify that we have created these renderings more as illustrative images for the architectural look. So at the time that the decision was made on the material using on the retaining walls and the landscape walls, I would say that it was not something discussed previously or approved. In this material board, what I am including is an interlocking concrete block system that we thought that this probably would be the most likely that we will use. But yes, I understand your concern. When you go to our renderings, you will see more like a stone look. Exactly. So I think we haven't made a decision internally with our client just to make sure that we can move forward with the material that is more appropriate for the project. But as I said, these images are more for an information about the materials that we were considered and for illustration only. If you need a specific material or decision, we can make this and pass to you as soon as possible.
Yeah, it was just that the look of the two different renderings was quite different, and I wondered which you were headed towards. However, that's not really our major concern, and it sounds to me that you're looking for a vote on this tonight, and there are some things that are going to be worked out, including the material of those walls, tree planting, tree removals, landscape plan, and some perhaps tweaking of the pervious impervious surface. Is that your understanding to Planning Department?
That's correct. We are hoping to get this voted out this evening.
So, Councillor, let's see, are there any other hands up? No, I don't see any either. Was somebody just speaking?
Hello?
Hello?
Yes. This is Marie Stefanik. I live in front of this building that's going to be built, and I'm having problems with my computer. So I wanted to just ask about, we're like right in front by the left-hand side of this building. And there are trees all across there that I would prefer, because we're like 3 to 4 feet down below this land. Their cars are going to come and they're going to point directly towards us, and we're going to probably get a lot of light directly into our house now. And I was hoping that we could get like some of the trees taken down and a fence put up so that they're not like aiming right at us as they're pulling in or coming out of their driveways.
That is not an unusual concern of abutting neighbors. Let's hear back from the petitioners about that.
So as we discussed at the neighborhood meeting, we are working with and going through the tree removal process with the tree warden as we speak. So, and as I mentioned, we will work with you to get a fence in place, or work with you to create a buffer between your property and ours, so that we would eliminate any concerns of headlights coming out of those properties.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Oliveri. So that's another thing that we'll put on the list of to be worked out with the Planning Department.
Well, Madam Chair, I think there's agreement that we will be installing some sort of screening, whether it's green screen or whether it's fencing, that will prevent light from shining on the Stefanik's property.
We definitely heard that, Mr. Morris. Thanks for confirming it again. I'm just mentioning it so that we're able to be sure that we see those words put on paper when we vote in the conditions.
Right. I would expect a condition to that effect.
Yes, me too.
Yep.
Anyone else? If not, we'll return to the motions that Councillor Greenberg was originally willing to make. The first was she was going to make the motion to close the public hearing. So all in favor? Aye.
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 And she also, I believe, said you were going to move approval, Councillor Greenberg?
Correct.
So let's see the findings and the council order.
Whoever is sharing their screen needs to stop. Okay, thank you. For findings, we have one, the site is an appropriate location for the proposed project as designed because it is a residential use in a residential district and the neighborhood has existing structures with 2-family and multifamily uses. 2, the proposed project that requires relief for reduced lot area, reduced rear setback, parking within 20 feet of a side lot line, a driveway within 10 feet of the side lot line, and to allow a retaining wall of 4 feet or higher within a setback as designed will not adversely affect the neighborhood because the design will bring a non-conforming side setback into compliance, and the proposed dwelling exceeds the lot area per unit required for single-family attached dwellings. 3, the proposed project will not create a nuisance or serious hazard to vehicles or pedestrians because all parking will be contained on the site. 4, access to the site over streets is appropriate for the types and number of vehicles involved. 5, literal compliance with the required location of the parking and driveway on the site is impracticable due to the existing location of the driveway. And 6, the site is an appropriate location for a retaining wall exceeding 4 feet in height within the side setback due to the grading of the site. For conditions, we have plan referencing all electric. I don't have the wording exact here, but a final landscape plan with adequate screening, standard building permit conditions and occupancy conditions. And I think we'd also want to see an updated site plan that shows the new location for that door.
Andrea.
Oh, so sorry. Councilor Lucas.
Thank you. Mr. Oliveri, quick question. Are these going to be rentals or condos?
Ownership.
Thank you. And just going back to that last slide, do we need the standard, I believe we have one, the rodent control plan? That wasn't on there. Just wondering, is that going to be a condition or?
Yes, that's in the draft conditions.
Okay.
As well.
All right. Thank you.
That's it. Sorry, I was thinking that there were going to be more of the specific conditions listed up there. Are we all set, ready to vote then?
Madam Chair,
Yes.
it's Maria.
Yes, Maria.
Do
Greenberg.
we need to add a condition about the pervious pavers?
Well, that's
as
what
promised?
and I didn't see it again, maybe about the fence or trees or buffer for Ms. Sapantek's property. I thought we were going to see some wording about some of those things that were still being worked on.
There was a blank line for screening.
It was just blank. Oh,
Well,
that's because
there was a
you're going to
there was a
fill it in.
placeholder for screening, so I assume that means, as Attorney Morris said, they're going to come forward with
We
a.
don't see that now. We just assume it's all going to be
Right, well,
worked out.
we're relying on Ms. Kemet. I assume you're going to flesh the words out behind those 4 or 5 bullet points, right?
I think these can all be addressed in the landscaping or site plan. I mean, if the committee is comfortable giving planning just the discretion to work with the applicant on pervious pavers, my first thought was that one parking stall at the end. I think our comment was more, it just seemed like the site had a lot of paving. So if it's something the committee wishes to see addressed, we can try to, but without really clear direction, it may be challenging.
Personally, I trust that it will be worked out. I've just learned over time that it's best to be able to see something in writing that's been verbally agreed to. And so it was a little open-ended for me. But if planning and the committee feels that they're happy to move on with this being worked on, we'll move in that direction.
Chair?
Councilor Downs.
Can we approve this subject to second call? We get a crack at looking at the landscaping plan and whatever they've been able to agree upon as far as reduction in impervious pavement with, I would agree, a particular focus on that stub end parking spot for the left-hand unit.
Mr. Oliver, do you think that some wording can be done before we vote on this, if we do approve it on second call within the next 2 weeks?
Well, we would approve subject to second call.
That's what I mean.
Okay,
But then we will be seeing it by second call. We would need to have that wording. That's what I'm asking.
So what would need to be produced to provide to the planning department? Are they giving us suggestions on, I mean, it's kind of an ask. It doesn't have any recommendations of percentage reduction or anything. It's just saying reduce it. That's one thing that's kind of open-ended on their memo.
Madam Chair, may I offer a suggestion here when you have a moment?
Yes, please. Thank you, Councilor Laredo.
So I think we routinely approve items subject to second call when we don't have, we want the opportunity to look at language in a council order. And certainly you or Councilor Lipoff can poll the committee on the next council meeting and do this on first call if folks want to do it that way, if they're pleased with what's been proposed. For ease of drafting, again, I'm going to abstain on this one just because I didn't hear the full discussion, but I'd urge us to provide language that gives enough guidance to planning here without being prescriptive, because it seems to me this is exactly the type of situation you want our planners with their expertise to have a certain amount of leeway to accomplish the goal that I think Councilor Downs articulated and Councilor Greenberg articulated, but without trying to set that in stone, so to speak, in this context. That'd be my strong recommendation here for drafting. And I do think if that language is got in particular, Councilors Greenberg and Downs a few days ahead of time, they can look at it to make sure it meets their concerns.
Thank you, Councilor Laredo. I think that's more articulately said than what I was trying to get at, and why I asked the petitioner if there was time to create some wording or agree to some wording to that is because a lot of this hasn't been decided yet. And I wanted to be sure that within the next week or two, that was giving them enough time to do it. But I think that's how we can do it. We can vote to approve it on second call.
That's fine.
Thank you, Madam Vice Chair.
Thank you all.
So can I just ask, Chair, are Ms. Kemet and is planning comfortable with writing those, taking those words now? Do you need anything else from us, or do you want Councilor Kelly and Downs to confer with you to do that? Or are you able to do it?
Kat, what's your call on that?
I think I heard Mr. Oliveri say, and I think he's right, trying to get to an exact percentage or something like that. We're not trying to do that. It's just heading in the direction.
Direction versus prescription. Planning?
I think we have what we need. From what I heard, it's mainly around the increasing pervious area, getting that updated landscape plan as well. The plan should also show a fence to mitigate the impacts of headlights on any abutting properties. And I think we can, take that back and work with the law department as well on that language.
Great. And as I heard it, it was a possible combination, planting trees, shrubs, and/or fence. It doesn't have to just be fence. So that was one of the recommendations. Again, if we're not going to be very specific in what we're prescribing right now, but it does sound to me like you have a good enough handle on it, and we can have faith moving forward in this direction. Yes, everyone? Let's vote.
Councilor Bowman?
Aye.
Councilor Downs?
Aye.
Councilor Greenberg?
You're muted, Councilor Greenberg.
Oh, sorry, aye.
Councilor Kelly?
Aye.
Councilor Laredo?
Abstain.
Councilor Lipoff? Councilor Lucas?
Aye.
Councilor Markowitz?
Aye.
Motion passes.
Yay, thank you.
Thank you.
Forward.
Thank you.
We're now going to back up one and do a petition number 242-23 at 97 Walben Hill Road North. Request to allow parking in the front setback and within 5 feet of the front lot line. Planning ready to do this?
Sure, well, we can go. Just let me pull this up. Okay, so this is the second time the committee is seeing this. I hope you see my screen. I believe it was in front of the committee in August, so we're really here for an update. The zoning relief that's requested is to allow a second parking stall in the front setback and within 5 feet of the street. You might remember this is the proposed layout. The existing driveway is on the left side. And as you can see, its depth is really kind of constrained by a deck and a side bump out of the house on that side. So the petitioner is seeking a new driveway and new curb cut on the right side of the property, encircled here in red as shown. It's 19 by 19 feet, so the size is standard, but it is directly at the back of the sidewalk where 5 feet is normally required. And this is an update. The public hearing did open back in August. It was held so the petitioners could explore alternatives. They have done so, but found no practical alternative to accommodate that existing additional parking stall. So they are proceeding with the previous proposed plan. No changes have been made to the plan at this point. So that's all the planning department has for now. And hopefully can answer questions the committee might have.
Thank you, Mr. Gleba. Does someone for the petitioner want to speak some more again to us on this? Is there anyone here for the petitioner?
Yeah, hey, this is Kevin and Rob and Barry. We actually did put together a slideshow. I don't know if I can share my screen to kind of show, I guess, other.
It was included in the, it should be,
Yeah.
someone should have access to it.
Can you
Let me see
share
if I
your
can do
screen
it.
now? Okay. There you go.
All right. Can you guys see this okay?
Yes.
All right, great. Here's our existing lot line. You can see the overhang here with our cars. Here's the sidewalk. And we're trying to put in, we're trying to show you and demonstrate where the sidewalk currently has overhang and where it's a bit defective with, you know, trees that have fallen over and root structures that have really compromised the sidewalk. So here's a couple things. And I'll mention, by putting in a driveway here, this should solve this issue. That would be something that, you know, we'd be taking care of there. Another step we took to amend this was to look at the current homes in our street with some non-conforming driveways, just to give you a sense as to where this is also done throughout our driveways. This is 114, excuse me, without our neighborhood, 114 Walben Hill Road North.
Go slower, go back up. So they have two driveways. The first picture shows the on one side of the house, and then you go around the house and there's another driveway. Both fit 2 cars. Okay, keep going. This is a double wide driveway. There are a lot of those on our street. Yep. Okay, this is another neighbor that we have that actually put in there. That's like 4 spots right there. And it's like a double wide entry curb cut. Further down in our street, there's 3 driveways here actually. The first one goes down back behind the house. Then directly to the left of the house, there's 2 spots. And then on the right side of their house where that blue car is, that's another 2 spots. So they actually have 3 curb cuts for driveways. Another house that has 2 curb cuts, that car that's parked that you can see on the far right. And then again, on the left of the house, there's a driveway that then goes down to a garage that's on the bottom. So fits multiple cars in that space too. This house has 2 driveways on either side. Both can hold 2 cars.
The picture might not do it justice, but there is a driveway here and a driveway here, both of which.
Yeah, there's a driveway on the left and then 2 cars that are parked currently on the right.
And
this one has a large wraparound driveway in the front, so that's 2 curb cuts, and then a driveway that goes further back too. There's more.
And then here's one that was done recently and recently approved within, I'd say, the last 2 years or so, equivalently 2 curb cuts here and a wraparound driveway. So
these are all directly on our street. So you can see that it's just the makeup of our street makes it so it's parking is very tight, and that's why there are so many homes that have done this. I guess we can stop sharing.
Yeah.
So what you wanted to do was show us tonight what a precedent there already is on your road for this type of parking situation.
Exactly.
Correct, yes.
Thank you. Anything else to talk about in terms of the questions that were asked before about trying to accommodate this on site, why that didn't work out for you?
We did have someone come, what's his name?
Mark.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Oh yeah, Mark came.
Yeah, Mark was nice enough to take some time out of his day and to visit and saw the site plan. So I'd love to, get his insight if that's all right. And I think by coming here in person and looking at the plot and looking at our land, there really is lack of an alternative. It's not a big home, and it doesn't have much on either side of it to.
And currently our cars are blocking the driveway. Blocking the sidewalk. There's really no other space to that we can put our cars. And our neighbors, we've talked to neighbors, they're fine with it. Especially because it happens so frequently in our neighborhood, but our direct neighbors don't have a problem with it. So I think we've done our due diligence there too.
Thank you very much. Are there any members of the public or neighbors who would like to speak to this project? There are none in the chamber. I don't see any hands raised on Zoom. Councilor Laredo.
Thank you very much, Madam Vice Chair. And after the last meeting, I did take the opportunity to go out to the site. I know Wobbin Hill Road pretty well. It's part of my ward, part of my neighborhood, but I had an opportunity to talk to the Barrys and look firsthand at this situation. And let me say that I'm strongly in favor of approving this project. And it strikes me as really, for lack of a better word, the poster child of why we have special permits, because I am someone who fully agrees generally with the concept that we should not have 2 driveways in a particular property, that we should not have 2 curb cuts on a particular property. I think all those as a general principle make good sense. However, what we have here is a situation where the lack of 2 curb cuts makes this more unsafe than allowing them to have 2 curb cuts. Right now, they park 2 cars in tandem without snow, mind you, without an inch of snow, and the second car is really sticking out over the sidewalk, which I find to be a very unsafe situation. If you allow them to have a second driveway, modest entry, I think it's probably 12 feet or so entrance, maybe less, you alleviate that. And they don't have any alternative here, folks, okay? They can't go further into the lot because of the topography of this particular house. The house is on a hill, it slopes steeply down in the back. There's an existing entryway on one side, there's an existing deck on the other, so they have no alternatives. What I'll add to that is, and what makes this additionally appropriate is, this is, as they pointed out quite appropriately, this is a very common situation in this part of my ward. The houses are close together. There are small lots. They're built on a hill. And oftentimes the only way to park is to allow parking in the front setback. You literally could not park here otherwise. And there's, so this situation exists up and down the street. You saw from their pictures, there's double wide driveways, there's multiple driveways. This is a common occurrence. And this is not a heavily traveled route. This is a very small number. This is a quiet residential street. They're most of the way up the street. There are few, if any, pedestrians who will walk here on a regular basis, the type of thing that makes us very concerned about multiple curb cuts ordinarily. So I'm really gonna, this is my ward. I paid very careful attention to this. I consider very carefully the safety issues and the issues of having multiple driveways and multiple curb cuts. And I think this is quite clearly a case where we should allow it. This is what a special permit's for. I'd like to be able to vote this out tonight and give the Barrys the relief they're seeing so they can go ahead with their project. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Laredo. Councilor Downs.
Thank you, Chair Kelly. I am going to agree with my colleague from Ward 7, but mostly because I suspect, and the Barrys can probably confirm this, that most people here actually walk on the street rather than on the sidewalk, in part because as our vehicles get larger, our historic driveways don't fit our cars anymore, and also because of the slope and because it's very lightly traveled. We often are concerned about multiple curb cuts because of the possibility of people on the sidewalk being exposed multiple times over to cars coming in and out, sometimes fairly quickly. That's also the problem with very wide driveways. I think the only concern, this is just one piece of asphalt, but it's again part of the puzzle of how Newton continues to be livable and continues to grow in the face of more and more extreme rainfall. And we're going to have to absorb more and more of it on our own properties, because otherwise we're flooding downhill properties, and sometimes to an extreme. We saw that on August 8th when City Hall, despite having an absorbent, brand new absorbent parking lot across the street, still flooded. And it wasn't from Cold Spring Brook, it was from the brook coming through Newton Center. So I would urge you to consider, to the extent possible, making this driveway pervious, either on the edges or in the middle, or entirely. You can do a nice looking driveway for that. But I'm not going to require it because I understand this is a small project and you've been through a couple of iterations with us. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Downs. Are there any other comments from committee members or other councilors?
I'll move to close the public hearing and move approval, Madam Vice Chair.
Thank you. Before we do that, I'd just like to make a couple of comments myself. I did go over to see this, and I was surprised to see how close to the road the house is and how tight it feels with the cars there. But I beg to differ that there are no alternatives or choices that could have been made or can be made. They all have consequences. For instance, the size of the cars that are purchased would make a difference. Buying the house initially would have made a difference. I find some irony in, we had a long discussion last night about the winter parking ban, and one of the reasons I first got interested in it, along with President Albright, is someone in her ward had purchased a house that they hadn't realized didn't have a driveway. And there was no pity for them, saying, why did you purchase a house without a driveway? Well, those people were first-time homeowners, came from the city. It didn't even occur to them to look for a driveway. They just assumed there was one. So in a case like this, when you buy a house with one driveway, that's a limitation. And as a landscape architect and site planner, I'll say that there is another choice about moving the deck. Now, the consequence of that, moving it, I'd say, back, is that it's expensive. So there are choices, there are alternatives, there are downsides of them, but to say there are no alternatives, I don't think is actually accurate in this one. I do like Councilor Downs' suggestion for the Barrys to consider pervious paving, or even like a ribbon driveway, pavers under the wheels on that right side. And actually that's very cost effective. That is a good suggestion for you to consider. So the things I was saying about choices and alternatives will not cause me to vote against this. I would just like to point them out rather than saying there are no alternatives here. There are. Some choices have been made, some choices can be made to help ameliorate the situation without necessarily the solution they're looking for here. But I will follow the lead of Ward 7 Councilor Laredo, and I will be able to vote in favor of this too. So if there are no more comments, let's take a look at conditions and take a vote on this. Oh, yes, there was a motion to close the public.
Close the public hearing first, Madam
Yeah,
Vice Chair.
right. That's what I'm in the middle of doing. So let's
sorry.
voice vote to close the public hearing. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Now we'll take a look at the findings and conditions.
So I hope you see the screen. I think the comments tonight can add color to the first finding that the specific site is an appropriate location because similar conditions exist throughout the neighborhood and the street has a low level of traffic. And I would suggest similar language could be added to the second finding as well. Because of those reasons, this will not adversely affect the neighborhood. The other two standard special permit criteria as well, there will be no nuisance or serious hazard to vehicles or pedestrians, and that access to the site over streets is appropriate for the types and numbers of vehicles. And then for the criteria for the parking waiver, that literal compliance with requirements that only one parking stall may be located in the front setback, and that a parking stall now be located within 5 feet of the front lot is impracticable, we can say, due to the size, width, and grade of the lot. So I think those would be the appropriate findings. And the conditions would be the standard plan. I don't believe we need a construction management plan, but the standard plan reference, building permit condition, and CO condition. And that's all.
Thank you, Mr. Gleba. I think we're ready to take a vote. Mr. Matthews.
Counselor Bowman?
Aye.
Counselor Downs?
Aye.
Counselor Greenberg?
Aye.
Counselor Kelly?
Aye.
Counselor Laredo?
Aye.
Counselor Lipoff? Counselor Lucas?
Aye.
Counselor Markowitz?
Aye.
Thank
Motion passes.
you, everyone. Good luck with your
Thank
new
you.
parking,
Thank you.
parking
Appreciate it all.
spot.
Thank you.
And we'll move on to our final item of the night, which is number 317-23. Request to allow 6 single-family attached dwellings in 3 buildings at 280 Nevada Street. We'll hear first from planning.
All right. Okay, so again, this is a special permit to build 6 single-family attached dwellings in 3 separate buildings. There's additional zoning relief that's needed, as shown on the screen. There is the first one for that use. And because of the design of the project, they also need relief to reduce the side setbacks. For that, the left and right setbacks would measure 23.4 and 16.2 feet respectively, less than the 25 feet required to allow parking in the front and side setbacks, to allow reduced maneuvering width. The driveway width would be 18 feet, where 24 feet is required, to waive perimeter screening requirements, to waive the lighting requirements, to allow a retaining wall of more than 4 feet in a setback, and to allow parking within the 20 feet of the front side lot line, and a driveway within 10 feet of a side lot line. And we'll see those in the site plan. The criteria to consider, given that amount of relief, is fairly lengthy. The first 4 as shown are the standard special permit criteria. Just basically saying that the specific site with that lot area of 29,550 square feet is an appropriate location for the proposed 6 attached single-family dwellings and 3 structures as designed, with a reduced side setback, parking facility with a parking stall in the front and side setbacks, reduce maneuvering aisle width, and to waive perimeter screening and lighting requirements, and to allow as designed with these things, and parking within 20 feet of the front and side setback, and a driveway within 10 feet of the side lot line, and a retaining wall with a height of more than 4 feet in the setback. Some of the special permit criteria, asking whether that will adversely affect the neighborhood, nuisance or serious hazard to vehicles or pedestrians, and whether access to the site is appropriate. There's also the criteria that granting exceptions to certain requirements provided by section 3.24 requiring a minimum side setback of 25 feet is appropriate as literal compliance, this tracks other language, is impractical due to the nature of the use, location, size, front, depth, shape, or grade of the lot. All such exceptions would be in the public interest, in the interest of safety, or protection of environmental features. The additional criteria is shown here as well. Whether granting exceptions to requirements from section 3.24 for minimum side setback of 25 feet is appropriate. Again, whether literal compliance is impracticable due to the use, location, size, frontage, depth, shape, grade of the lot, or such exceptions would be in the public interest of safety, or protection of environmental features. The next criteria, the standard parking waiver language, and this has to do with waiving putting parking stalls in front and setbacks, the minimum maneuvering width, perimeter screening, lighting requirement, and parking within 20 feet of the front side setback, and the driveway within 10 feet of the side lot line, and whether the criteria would apply to those. And then similarly, whether granting exceptions to certain requirements, again, section 6.23b2, not allowing the location of parking within 20 feet of the lot line or driveway within 10 feet of the side lot line would be appropriate. Again, whether compliance would be impracticable, nature, use, location, size, width, depth, grade of lot, or those exceptions would be in the public interest or in the interest of safety or protection of environmental features. Here we see the site in an aerial map. It is outlined in green. It's more than 29,000 square feet, but it is a long and narrow lot. I believe the frontage is about 80 feet at the street. And you can see how far it goes back. And I will note the mix of uses in the neighborhood with even commercial uses to the rear and to the right of the property. Here's the existing site plan, kind of flipped around from what we just saw. Nevada Street is on the right, and here we see the existing home, a pool and pool house in the rear, driveway along the right side of the property that goes all the way to the rear, paved to the back. And as is noted in the memo and material from the petitioner, at one point fairly recently, the back portion of the lot was used by the abutting commercial business to the rear, but we've been told by the petitioner that no longer exists. Now, here's the proposed site plan. Actually, that last quarter or so of the lot is shown on the bottom. The red line is the match line to show the entire property. To just address that first, the petitioner is proposing, and this is subject to a Concom order of conditions, a retention pond where the former encroachment was, to be landscaped with a walkway around it. So that would be that rear, at this point, quarter or so. On the top, we see the proposed development, again with the Nevada Street on the right. And what we have is 3 separate structures, each with 2 units. Each one of the unit has a ground level 1-car garage, and each unit also has 1 exterior garage pretty much adjacent to those garages. Those parking spaces are all served by the proposed new driveway on the left side of the property, which would be 18 feet wide, not the required 24. And it's also a portion of that width is occupied by a differently paved walkway, so there would be a visual distinction between the drive area and a walking area, but they're both within that proposed 18 feet width. Here are the elevations. On top is the left side elevation, which is according to the previous one, it would be pretty much facing the bottom of that site plan. So here we see the 3 individual buildings, each one with 2 units, somewhat like 3 two-family houses. On the lot, each one with a garage at the ground floor level. And there would be a parking space next to each one. So again, each unit has 2 parking stalls. The bottom drawing is the front elevation, which would really be at the right-hand side of the top renderings. And we do see somewhat of a recessed front door that does face the street on that elevation. This is the right side. So again, kind of facing the top of the site plan that we saw before. So you do not have garages facing this side, and these doors lead to open space to each of the units. And the rear elevation is shown on the bottom. The landscaping plan is shown here. So we see more detail for that back quarter of the lot at the bottom, where the proposed retention pond would be, a walkway encircling that, a park bench, things like that. We see a mix of trees. The larger green circles are canopy trees. Again, that portion is subject to an order of conditions issued by the Concom. The top part of the drawing showing the 3 structures, each one with 2 units, landscaping around the side. And on the bottom, that's the left-hand side, where you can kind of see the buffer that's there between the proposed driveway and the property line on that side. So that's all that we have for now, and hopefully can answer questions that the committee might have.
Thank you, Mr. Gleba. Is there someone from the petitioner, owner or builder, who has a presentation or something they'd like to present?
Yes, Madam Vice Chair, Lawrence Lee here on behalf of the petitioner.
Welcome, Mr. Lee.
Thank you. With your permission, I'd like to share my screen and hopefully supplement Mr. Gleba's presentation. Okay. All right, can you all see that?
Yes.
Wonderful. All right, so I'm not going to repeat what Mr. Gleba had indicated, so I'm going to run through the presentation quickly. I want to add some more context in terms of where the neighborhood and our property. So we are in an MR1 zoning district with just under 30,000 square feet of land, currently with a single family house, and we are in a very mixed neighborhood. And I think the picture is worth 1,000 words, so I'm going to show you some of those later on. We are proposing 6 units with 2 parking spaces each, so we do not require a parking waiver. The lot area per unit here, because the lot is rather large, is about 5,000 square feet of land per each unit, which, as you will see it later on, is pretty much in line with the density, and sometimes it's more land per unit than the density within our neighborhood. We did go through the Conservation Commission. We have received an order of conditions approving what I'm calling this park at the back of the property. So this is the site. The zoning map really does show some of the diversity within this immediate area. We are surrounded by a manufacturing district in the purple. Our site is right over here. So you can see that our 3 lots really are really the biggest lots within the immediate neighborhood. A lot of these are all multifamily. The lots are probably 10,000, these around 5,000 square feet. The MR2s, you see the densities here are pretty much sometimes even lower than ours. This also back here is where the lake used to be. So I think in terms of some folks who know this area to be the lake, I think that's where the name came from. Here's a Google Earth image of our property. You can see some of the manufacturing and commercial uses immediately in our neighborhood. These are the multifamily uses. This property is actually a 4-unit building that was permitted in 2014 directly next to us. Back here is the conservation area. So that's why you see a lot of trees and greenery back there. Here's the direct overhead view, which I think gives you a little bit more context. So directly behind us is a manufacturing use as a contractor's yard. When my client acquired the property, a good portion of the back part of our land was used by the contractor. So at the time when the transaction took place, the contractor did remove a lot of basically everything. And so there's a need to clean all that stuff up. And this is where the so-called park is going to be installed. Here's some pictures to give you some context of the existing conditions. So this is the driveway. The house is on this left over here. This is standing at Nevada looking towards the back of the property. So to give you some idea of the length of the driveway, this butts right up against our property to the right, our neighbors to the right. The right-hand side here, this is where the 4-unit special permit development took place. This is a view from standing in the back of the driveway looking out towards Nevada Street. This is the pool area, which you can see between the 2 buildings. This driveway actually comes directly back, and then it comes around the back, and then the driveway leads into the 2 garages underneath here. So you have to actually loop around to get into the garages in the back. Here's the view of the backyard, so to speak. There's a lot of stuff there, which is going to be cleaned up as part of the project. And this is where the park is going to be. There's some photos of the streetscapes. Nevada is pretty wide, which is really nice. This is one of the rare wider streets down at the lake. So it's very roomy, and so it's not very dense and condensed in this area. The elevations Michael had already covered, so I'm not going to go through those. It's just a closer image of the front facade. The landscaping here, I think I want to show probably this one first. So to give you a little bit more information, we do have the architect and landscape architect on the call should there be any particular questions. Again, this whole area has been approved with an order of conditions by the Conservation Commission. There's a retention pond that's going to be here. So this steps down from a walkway. The back edge of the back building is right over here. The driveway, the proposed driveway, is on the lower side over here. Steps coming down to this park. There's a little walking path. There's going to be some benches for folks to enjoy. So this is going to be a really, really nice and huge improvement from the existing conditions. Going back to this area, I do want to point out some of the waivers that are noted. It just appears to be a lot, but in actuality, it really is not. So, for example, the lighting requirement, the interpretation that this is a parking facility of 5 parking spaces or greater, that really comes from the fact that we have 1 car parking within the garage and then 1 exterior parking. So the totality of the 6 exterior parking spaces, the interpretation of that was that this was a parking facility of 5 stalls or greater, which really is intended, in my opinion, for a commercial type or apartment style type setting. Hence the requirement for lighting, which obviously, as noted in the planning memo, it would not be appropriate in a residential setting. So we wouldn't want to put commercial type lighting that would be appropriate in those areas. Here, we would be proposing dark sky compliant lighting. It would be enough to illuminate for safety and aesthetic purposes along the walkways and staircases. But that's one of the reasons why those requirements were listed, is really just an interpretation. So 3 of those waivers related to that. I also want to note that in terms of the parking within side and front setback requirements, those are actually, if this were a by right development, a two-family house, you are allowed 2 cars actually, one for each unit within the front setback, and you are allowed parking within the side setback. So the reason why the side parking space, so side yard waiver is required is because when you are in a single family attached dwelling, special permit, 25-foot setbacks automatically apply. And we are at about 23 feet over here. So the edge of the parking spaces, the exterior parking spaces, are technically within that new side setback of 25 feet, hence the requirement. As you can see, the driveway is really just on the reverse side. There are very generous setbacks here. Our lot coverage is actually well under what would be the by right lot coverage here. So that means there's less building coverage. 30% would be a by right MR lot coverage as a maximum. We're actually under 23%. Our open space is 6% greater than the 50% minimum. Because we are replacing a lot of that pavement that was there taken up by the contractor's yard and cleaning all of that up, there's really only a delta of 10% of open space. So the existing conditions is about 66% open space. Even with all the improvements and so forth, it's a 56% open space, which is, again, 6% greater than the by right. We are still, in terms of the setbacks, much greater than the 7.5 old lot, 7.5 feet old lot setback requirements on the left-hand side. So this is from the Nevada Street side. So I'm calling the left as viewed from the Nevada Street. This is about, it's over 20 feet to about 23 feet. This side to the building is about 16 feet. So it's more than twice the old lot requirements there. So I think those are notable points that I wanted to point out and highlight as part of our petition. So I will stop share and welcome any questions you may have.
Thank you very much, Mr. Lee. Are there any members of the public who have questions and or would like to make comments about this? Terry Sorrow.
Hi, thank you. Terry Sorrow, 44 Cook Street. And I'm really upset that Rick Lipoff isn't cheering tonight because we met with this developer and I'm in total support of this development. I think it's great. The street is not narrow and dense. The 6 units, it's on 29,000 square feet and the 5,000 in the back with all the greenery. So I am not going to go against this development. So I am for this development. I just want to say thank you. This probably doesn't have anything to do with the other, but when you had said that family that bought the home on Endicott Street, or I forget the name of the street, I would think that when you're with the realtor and you're looking at a home, you would know that there was a driveway or no driveway there. But that's another issue for another time. But thank you.
Thank
and
you.
Could you make sure that Councilor Lipoff knows that I voted for this project?
I will tell him that, and I'll tell him that you're very sorry he's not chairing tonight either, but it's nice to see you here, and it's nice to hear you have such positive things to say about this project. Thank you, Mrs. Sorrow.
Thank you.
Gurvinder Jawal?
Yeah, hi, this is, my name is Ashwini. I'm going to speak for my mother-in-law, Gurvinder Jaiswal. Her property abuts this property. That's the lot right next to the, her property is 272 Nevada Street, which is the one next to the proposed construction site. And obviously she's very concerned because, you know, this seems to be, the way that it's proposed, it sounds like it's going to be really congested. And that's why I guess all these waivers have been asked for. It looks like there's going to be at least 12 cars parked there, plus visitors. and it's going to create obviously a lot of, traffic. Right now, it's a pretty quiet and quaint street with the Carr School or the new Horace Mann School right opposite, which also then creates, safety for kids issue. She's also concerned, that this is going to create a lot of noise with all the traffic coming in and out, because the driveway that's been shown in the pictures right now is not abutting her property currently, but the proposed plan for construction is to now make the new driveway next to her property. So all the traffic coming in and out will be from there, which is right next to her property. Plus, I'm sure, the garbage pickups and things of that nature. And plus the pedestrian safety because of all these cars coming in and out of the street. Quite a few houses in the street actually are single family homes or two family. And so I think her concern is that this should be scaled down a bit, maybe a 2-family or a 4-family, something that's more keeping with the amount of space there is, rather than crowding up the place and building these 6 units with 12 cars. And also these are likely to be high rise just because the space is less. So it'll block some sun exposure and kind of, it sounds like these are not going to be very spacious apartments. They'll all be tall apartments or, single. And so these are all of her concerns regarding the construction.
So I have many fruit trees in my yard, and if sun is blocked because of the high up buildings, my trees might die. They will not have enough sun.
Is that all you would like to say for now?
Yes.
Thank you very much, both of you. I wonder if the petitioner would like to address some of those concerns that you raised around congestion and noise and scale, or whether they've just listened to it and will consider those comments. Mr. Lee, for instance, did you want to have any response to this family?
Yes, I'd be happy to address it. So I think in this particular neighborhood, as I indicated, and I think in my slides, we're in a very mixed-use neighborhood. Right on Nevada Street, 2 doors away is a large office complex with a very large parking lot. So I can bring that slide up right again. Further down, just past Linwood, is the school, Horace Mann. So there's a lot of traffic on that side. This is a residential building, and right next to us on our right-hand side, as viewed from Nevada Street, there are 4 residential units there. Directly across the street, there are 3 units, and most of the lots here are fraction of the size of this particular lot, and most of them have 2 or more residential units on each, and they're a lot smaller and narrower than our property. We are also over 23 feet away from her side on the left side. So I think the person who spoke just now, they are located directly to our left as viewed from Nevada Street. Our current house is actually 10 feet away from her property line. So we are closer to her currently. We're going to be removing that structure, pulling it double, which is more than double. It's 10 feet currently. So we're going to move it 23 feet away. And the height of our buildings is no taller than a by right building. So in terms of shadows, we're certainly not going to cast any shadows just because we are going to be within the by right heights. We're almost 3 times further away than what we can build by right next to their property. So those are the things that I want to address. And according to also Terry, who spoke, Nevada Street, and as I also indicated, is a much wider street than what you typically see down at the lake. There's a lot of, there's street parking. I've been there many times. It's a quiet area. Residential users, as we all know, and as the Land Use Committee knows just from the various petitions that you've seen, residential uses generate the least amount of traffic, and it's less than commercial uses. So I think those are responses that I would like to make.
Thank you for responding specifically to those comments, and I hope that helps that family somewhat understand the intention and consequences of this. Councillor Lucas.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Yeah, Mr. Lee, I was just going to say the same thing regarding the building height. You're only going up to 2.5 stories when this could go up to 3 stories. So keeping the building heights down, much appreciated. I want to echo what Ms. Sorrow said earlier. I think this is a fine project. I'm a little confused on one thing. You showed us the landscape buffer. Where exactly is that going to be on the site? I couldn't understand. You're on mute.
I can share my screen and find that slide, and hopefully that will make it a little bit clearer.
Please.
If that works. Okay. So I separated it out. So this is the end of, so this is at the back of our property. And there's about 100 plus 115 feet or so from the edge of the rear building to the end of our lot line. So to the right-hand side of this would be Nevada Street, and to the left would be the manufacturing district that I showed earlier. To the upper side of this is where the lake, so-called lake, the Silver Lake used to be, and to the bottom of this is where our neighbor with the fruit trees are. So does that clarify, Councilor Lucas, that in terms of the location of this area?
Yeah, it's in the back of the property. Okay, yeah.
Correct.
That's helpful.
Okay.
I asked a question in the previous petition. Are these rentals or ownerships?
Ownership.
All right, good. Okay, that's fine. This is a fine project, as I said. So thank you.
Do we know where the trash cans are going to be kept, and how are the dumpster trucks going to come pick up the trash?
Good question. So we're probably going to have a private service. What I anticipate is that we don't want to jam up the sidewalk, and we're not going to rely on city services here. So what's going to happen is that we will hire and pay for a private service. As this will be ownership, we'll make that as part of the condominium documents, such that they're not going to be jamming up the sidewalk when the time comes for pickup.
So those trucks will not come on this driveway and to having so much noise, they're coming and going and picking up the trash.
Yeah, what I'm assuming, we don't have a central dumpster. What we're anticipating is that folks will actually use the regular size dumpsters that we all use in Newton. So rather than them wheeling out and you hearing the wheels like we all hear on pavement, they're going to just be putting them in front of their garages, have a small enough dumpster truck that we see on occasion, and they will be wheeled out and then they will be dumped into the truck, and then the barrels will be put back, likely going to be in the garage area, and then the truck will back out at that point. It's not wide enough for the types of city trucks that we all use with the arms, the mechanical arms. This is probably going to be all done by hand.
Thank you for explaining that too. I see Councillor Greenberg and also Councillor Downs. I wonder if Councillor Greenberg wants to let Councillor Downs go next so that you can wrap up as the ward councillor, or would you prefer to go next?
No, that's fine.
Okay, Councillor Downs.
Hi, thank you again. I really think this is a big improvement over what's there, and better than the buy red option. So let me get that out of the way. A couple of questions for you. This is an area called the Lake, and that's for a reason. And I know a lot of documentation about stormwater and including a sewer pump and a lot of operations and maintenance. Attorney Lee, can you speak a little bit about how all of those regular maintenance of the stormwater system here will be allocated between the various owners, and also ensuring that that sewer pump stays operational so that nobody gets a nasty surprise in their basement, that kind of thing. I mean, just seems like there's a lot of infrastructure under here, probably necessary for the kind of slope you're on and the kind of soils you're in. But I just want some reassurance that that's not, we're not creating a future problem.
Very good question. So as a standard operating procedures, what happens is that we will be, if the special permit were to be granted, the first order of things will be recording the special permit at the Registry of Deeds. That's typically followed by the recording of the O&M that's attached to an affidavit referencing a condition, the standard condition that we typically see in a special permit. Further that, so that will be permanently in the record title, as these are going to be intended for ownership. Condominium documents that will be drafted in conjunction with these 6 units will reference the special permit and the O&M as a continuing obligation for the unit owners. So they will have likely part of their budget to pay for the continued maintenance, just as anything else with the building and with the yard, the park in the back and so forth. There are likely going to be ongoing conditions with the order of conditions. We have to also go back to Concom after the work is all done, get their certificate of compliance. That also needs to be recorded with the Registry of Deeds. So those are all going to be public record and stay with the property.
May I have a couple of follow-up questions on the maintenance of the park, and I understand that's, you know, Concom will have some say on that, but I've had some experience where the houses have been sold with rain gardens and other infiltration structures in them, and then those have become tomato garden or something totally different that doesn't retain rainwater and defeats the purpose of the landscaping. Is this any stronger than the conditions for what we saw with this single family home near a wetland?
I think the best answer I can give you is that the order of conditions that's issued by Concom is going to be recorded at the Registry of Deeds. That's going to be also made as part of the record and referenced in the condominium documents. And I know that if there's, just like with any building violations, if there were to be some violations, I'm sure Jennifer Steele will be all over it, and they will be.
I was told there was nothing she could do in this case.
Really?
That's why it worries me.
Interesting.
It's because I guess I'll flag this for my colleagues. We need to find a way to make those easier to enforce. You call this area in the back a park, and I agree it looks park-like. Is it park-like in the sense that it's open to the public or only to the condo owners?
That's just my layman's term to refer to it. It's really a private space for the residents.
Got it.
And their guests.
Yeah, just wanted to clarify that it does look park-like, and I'm sure it's a heck of a lot better than what's been there. And I guess there's no real way to know how the stormwater system will function, and as our climate gets wetter. But it is a worry I have in this area because it is low-lying and because you are near what used to be a lake for the neighborhood. But I don't see any way at this point to address those worries. So given what's there and given what this will be, it is an improvement, and I hope it works out. Thanks.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Downs. Councillor Greenberg.
Oh, thank you, Madam Vice Chair. Attorney Lee, could you describe what would be buffering along the driveway? What kind of landscaping, if there be a fence to, or a high type of landscape plantings to buffer your neighbor?
Yes, there is some, there's a fence that is proposed along the perimeter. Let me see if I can pull up the, with your permission, to share my screen one more time.
Yes, please do.
Thank you. Let's see, I think it's the prior slide to this. So there is along the driveway a berm, a landscape berm, and this is also protected by a 6-foot tall fence that we're proposing as well. So
okay,
that's
and
consistent.
what kind of fence? What kind of fence will that be?
I think it's going to be a wood stockade fence.
Okay, not vinyl. That'd be good.
No.
Okay. I see Miss Jaiswal has her hand raised again. Can we see if that's okay with her, that fencing, if that will help her concerns?
Fencing is okay, but as you, the previous person said about the concern about the water flooded from the Silver Lake side, that there is a big hole over there behind the, next to this house, but behind the other 4 condos which they made. One time, since I am living here, there is big flooding one time that you can, it is about a foot high water came. So she is right, because there can be concern with the flooding, which can, and the, that can be future, one should keep in mind that these places can be flooded, that there is some spring well in that area. I don't know, I have never gone to look at it, but I see a big hole over there. And but one time it got very much flooded, that water came even in my house.
So I believe that they're proposing to address the stormwater issue and make it better than it is currently.
Thank you.
There is a plan for that.
What is your
one question? The property that's on the other side of this proposed plan, now they have 4 units. What is the lot size of that property?
I don't know.
Because I wonder if instead of 6 units, if only 4 units could be made, I wonder if all these waivers would be needed, because it's obviously making it so tight that you have to get these waivers to park cars, and it's very tight basically.
Yeah, the density is, the proposal is, the waivers do not address the density. We're actually below what is the allowed density by a special permit. So we're just under 5,000 square feet of lot area per unit, where 4,000 square foot lot area per unit is allowed by special permit. I really can't speak to the neighboring property other than the fact that I think about half of their property is covered by this lake. So that's probably why they are only able to build in the front half of their site.
Thank you, Mr. Lee, again for addressing the Jaywal's concern. And we have heard your concerns around that density. It has been so noted, and Mr. Lee has, and the planning department have talked about the waivers needed and not needed for this sort of density. But right now, I think we're still giving the floor to Councilor Greenberg.
Oh, thank you. So in general, this is a very good project. There's been a lot of consensus with the neighbors, and as you heard from Ms. Saro, in general, folks are pleased with it. It's a big improvement over what is there. The 25% lot coverage, it's still below 25% lot coverage. The green space is above the 50% minimum. There'll be a robust stormwater mitigation plan done, so that will help any concerns about flooding in the rear. So I think that is a big selling point. And the restoration of the back lot, which was, as Attorney Lee said, a contractor's yard with a lot of debris and overgrowth, will be restored and beautified. So that's a huge plus. So in general, I'm very much in favor of this. And however, because it's such a large lot at 29,000 square feet, I think it would have been appropriate that 7 or 8 units be proposed here. And that would trigger our IZ ordinance. So it would have been more favorable to me if there were more units with an affordable unit to give better benefit to the city. But that's not what's before us. So I approve of this project, but as Councilor Gentile has reminded us many times, that when petitioners come before us and ask for waivers for their proposal, that there should be some benefit to the city. And so I would kindly request, Attorney Lee, that you ask your client if it would be possible to make a contribution to the Affordable Housing Trust in lieu of a possible affordable unit.
Sorry, just got myself on mute. Thank you, Councilor Greenberg. I do recall certain projects that I was involved in where we have 6 units and we're just under the triggering of the IZ units, where it starts at 7 units. I have had conversations with my clients as in preparation of this petition, and I have spoken with him previously regarding the contributions and the fact that we are just shy of it, and that we may be asked to help contribute. And this would be something that, if the project as presented is approved, they will be willing to make a contribution. At the moment, what I have been authorized to approve by him is a $100,000 contribution towards the Affordable Housing Fund.
Nicely done, Councilor Greenberg.
That's wonderful. Thank you, Attorney Lee.
And thank you, Mr. Lee. I would just like to make a few comments before we move on to what I guess is going to be a motion by Councilor Greenberg to close the public hearing and approve the project. I agree with a lot of what was said about what an improvement this project is in terms of cleaning up that site. I think the retention pond not only is an important way of handling ecological and conservation issues, but it's a nice little nod to what used to be the lake. Is replacing a lake with a retention pond, certainly nicer than the pool that's currently on part of this site. It's a long, narrow, difficult site. As Councilor Downs mentioned, I think it's better than a by right project. It could have been a bigger project, as Councilor Greenberg was pushing for, although the neighbors across the street were smaller. And there are trade-offs with that. One is providing housing. I think that dealing with the stormwater and the flooding remediations is really important. Cleaning up that whole backside of the site, I think it's really nice. The other thing I'm thinking about is that in terms of public benefit, Councilor Downs raised it a little. It would be awfully nice if this little park towards the back, this passive recreation path and seating area was available for other people than just the residents if there was access. I don't think it would become overrun, but that's something you all can think about. And I just have one little specific question. Mr. Lee, the wooden fence you mentioned is going to go up. Do you know the height, and if that's picket or stockade, is it going to be penetrable visibly, and is it 4 feet high or 5 feet high, or what are you picturing for that fence?
Good question. I think, Mark, would you be able to help me with this? Mark Sanchella is on the design team here, so maybe he's better suited to answer that question.
Yeah, hi, everybody. This is on the side, the left side as you face the project from the street. And basically, I think it's a 2 foot high low wall and then 4 feet of fence. So the cumulative effect is 6 foot. And I think it'll be, Susan, it'll be in.
It was going to be stockade.
Stockade, so you really won't.
Which is what's there now.
She's not gonna really see through it, right?
No.
Okay.
And if I may add too, I believe the inspectional services have indicated as an interpretation that if you were to put a fence on top of a retaining wall, that the cumulative height counts. So I think if the wall, say, for example, is 2 feet tall and you're going to put a fence on top, it can only be 4 feet. So cumulatively, we cannot exceed 6 feet. But it sounds to me that we're doing a privacy fence. It'll be stockade and it will not be see-through.
That's what it sounds like. Thank you for clarifying that. Councillor Greenberg, would you like to make some motions? If there are
Yes,
no other comments?
motion to close the public hearing and move approval.
All in favor of closing the public hearing, say aye.
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 And let's move on to look at findings and conditions, or yes, findings and conditions.
So here are the findings. The first one, whether it's the site is an appropriate location for what's being proposed. The finding would be that it is, given that it is given its location in a neighborhood with a mix of residential uses, including single, 2, and multifamily dwellings, and as well as commercial and public uses. Similar finding for the requirement to find that it will not adversely affect the neighborhood, again, given that mix of uses. There will be no nuisance or serious hazard to vehicles or pedestrians, and access to the site of a street is appropriate, given for the types and numbers of vehicles involved. The additional findings, exceptions to certain requirements provided by 3.24, requiring a minimum side setback of 25 feet is appropriate, as literal compliance is impractical given the long, narrow shape of the lot. The exceptions to the parking requirements provided by section 5.1, those are appropriate, as literal compliance is impracticable due to the long, narrow shape of the lot, and it will be in the public interest, as it will facilitate the protection of environmental features, as the rear of the lot will be improved per requirements of the Conservation Commission, and as it pertains to the lighting requirements, limit excessive lighting. Then the final finding is number 7, that granting exceptions to certain requirements provided by section 6.2.3b2 that do not allow the location of parking within 20 feet of a lot line or a driveway within 10 of a side lot line is appropriate, as literal compliance is impracticable due to the long, narrow shape of the lot. And again, it will be in the public interest, as it will facilitate the protection of environmental features at the rear of the lot, as the rear of the lot will be, again, approved per requirements of the Conservation Commission. And then for the conditions, standard plan referencing the O&M plan condition, pest rodent control condition, need for a construction management plan, vibration control. There is an I&I fee attached to this, 25% of which would go to sewer improvement, 75% to mitigation that would be approved by the city council. The standard building permit condition include the final landscape plan, and the standard final inspection CFO condition, given the extensive, and this one is not in the audit in the packet, I just added it, that we would require landscape architecture compliance statement that what gets put in complies with the approved plan. And we should also add the landscape maintenance requirements as well. And those are all the conditions.
If I may add, Madam Chair, relating to the affordable housing contribution, we are happy to have that added as a condition. And in doing so, to make sure that my folks don't run into any cash flow issues, we do request that if the payment be made, perhaps upon the sale of the last 3 units, so that we have at least 3 units having been sold, and then we would have the cash flow to pay that fund, and we can make those payments in the last 3 COs. Something along those lines would be fine with us.
That sounds reasonable to me, but I'm not the arbiter of that. I think we'll just run that by planning and law. But thank you for making that specific suggestion or recommendation. Councilor Laredo.
Just a quick question here. The inflow and infiltration fee, what is that going to be here?
It's going to be 118, I think, approximately.
Yeah, that's the total.
114, 428.
Yes.
And that's based on our standard calculations?
Yeah, the city engineer calculates that based on, I think, the flow and the redevelopment of the site. He also recommends, a certain portion could be abated if the council agrees to it. Due to the number of the abatement funds, it's about $85,000. It's not enough to really find an improvement nearby, so we leave that language pretty general, and then it would need to be appropriated at a later date via the city council.
So we're not abating any of this money, correct?
I think the way the condition is written is there is an abatement. The city engineer reviews whether an abatement is appropriate, and there issues a memo, and he did say the developer can consider dedicating abated amount of the fee towards other mitigation as recommended. It's the $85,000. It wouldn't fully fund any improvements nearby, so it's part of the city ordinance that they're required to do I&I fee over 5 units. So it's money coming in regardless to be appropriated later.
So I just want to understand, and forgive me, Ms. Wewell, for not getting this accurate. It's over 5 units, so we have an I&I fee. The I&I fee is somewhere north of $100,000. The city engineer has some discretion to say, we don't need all of that for I&I, but you still have to pay the $100,000+. We're just going to put it to another city a purpose that is in the general area that will be considered a mitigation. Is that accurate?
That's correct. Yep.
Okay. And that's separate and apart from the $100,000 that Mr. Lee is offering to pay, right?
That's correct.
Correct.
I'm fine with that. Just wanted the clarification. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Councilor Laredo. Councilor Bowman.
Thank you very much. So I just wanted to say that are we not with the payment, the very generous offer or agreement to make a payment for affordable housing, I believe, which is the $100,000. Are we not allowed as the city council, since this is not a standard payment, could we not, I have no issue with this being paid after the first 3 units are sold, especially since we just got a report that sales on condominiums are going slowly. I have no issue with this being paid in the second half. I would never want to do something that would discourage a future developer from offering up this, generous additional payment. So I have no issue with that. So if, I guess legal can tell us whether or not we can decide when it goes, but I feel like we should, as council, as a land use committee, be able to say that we are fine with it being paid after the sale of the 3rd unit.
I would want to get input from the developer, since this is a voluntary payment, as to what they would be comfortable with as to the timing.
They asked if you weren't, I'm sorry, Mr. Temple, they had asked for it to be after the 3rd payment. And
okay.
I think what we heard from Vice Chair Kelly was that she wanted to consult with the law department as to what you guys thought. So that was, so I'm just saying, I think we can set the rules.
Yeah,
okay.
I think that's probably, we would have picked a middle unit number anyway. So that makes sense.
So we're thinking alike on that. Thank you for chiming in, Mr. Temple. Councilor Bowman, are you all set with that?
So I guess maybe I'd make another statement, and maybe this is what we're going to hear from Councilor, what we're going to hear from Councilor Greenberg, is I'd love to see, given the location close to the Horace Mann School, if some of that money that's being set aside, whether there could be some contact with the schools as to whether or not there's an option to do something there, a rain garden or some other improvement. We are doing work there. I certainly feel like that would be a good use for this fund, for these funds. Thank you.
You mean for the possible additional INI money?
Correct.
So noted. Councillor Greenberg, final word.
Thank you. Yes, I agree with Councillor Bowman. If some of that INI money could be used for Horace Mann, since it is being refurbished and redone, perhaps some of that money could be used since it's right down the street, very close to this project. I think that would be a perfect use for that money.
It's a very appropriate recommendation. Are we ready to take a vote on this?
Chair, can I make one more comment?
Yes, Mr. Gleba.
Just based on the conversation tonight, we could add a condition about the trash being picked up by a private company.
The trash?
Yep.
Okay, that was mentioned, so sure, put it in.
Yeah, and if I could just point out something about the INI payment, it's typically broken up half and half due at building permit and then the latter half due at occupancy. So it's a little tricky to pinpoint where exactly to put forward that money due to the timing of construction. It depends on when this project is built and when it's occupied and when those funds would come into the city. So just something to be aware of. I don't see any issue with how it's, proposed right now, but it's sort of something to be determined, I guess.
Thank you, Ms. Wewell. I suspect that whenever that becomes available, the school department and Horace Mann would be happy to accept some additional funding for improvements to their lot. Councillor Greenberg, do you still have your hand up to speak?
I just have another question. Do we need any language in the conditions for the contribution to the Affordable Housing Trust right now, or should we just wait for Mr. Temple to wordsmith that?
It's pretty standard language. We will add that in before it goes to full council.
And
thank you.
If I may, sorry, Madam Chair, and I think we've given, thank you for giving us the leeway and the flexibility on the payment of that fee. And I would assume that flexibility also extends to the breaking up of that amount too, just in case we do need to break that up. Oftentimes in the residential sale closing, we have to pay down a mortgage, there's closing costs. So instead of, $100,000 one shot, even though it may be in a later time, if you can give the flexibility to the planning department and the law department to allow them to draft language to break that payment up, I would very much appreciate that too.
Yeah, I think that's the direction we've been heading tonight, and we've been talking about wanting to be directional but not perfunctory. So I think that's fine as long as planning and law are on the same page.
Yes.
Yes. Okay. Let's take a vote. Time to vote. Clerk, call the roll.
Councillor Bowman?
Aye.
Councillor Downs?
Aye.
Councillor Greenberg?
Aye.
Councillor Kelly?
Aye.
Councillor Laredo?
Aye.
Councillor Lipoff?
Absent. Oh.
Councillor Lucas?
Aye.
Councillor Markowitz?
Aye.
Our work is done. Good night, everyone. Thanks for
Thank you.
coming. Bye-bye.